What's up, everybody? It's Alan the Kraken, and today we're going to take a look at the past and we're going to revisit Drone of Brutality and why I think it should be unbanned now. Back in March 18th of 2021, Legend Story Studios put out this banned and restricted announcement for the Drone of Brutality, and if you haven't seen my Veblen and Giffen Goods video, I want you to go back and watch that before you watch this video. That way you can kind of get an understanding of where I'm going with this conversation. And without further ado, let's get started. I don't think I've covered this before or their reasoning, so I'm going to go ahead and read this announcement for those of you that have missed it, or just a refresher for you guys. One of the four design tenets of Flesh and Blood is every card counts. What we mean by this is that during most games of Flesh and Blood, both players see every card in their deck at least once. As each card is drawn, a player must decide what role that card will play towards their strategy to win the game. One of the tension points, which we believe underpins interesting and meaningful gameplay, is when players are forced to evaluate the cost of defending with high-impact cards, the trade-off between defend what my opponent is doing versus the cost of no longer having the high-impact card in my deck. Examples of cards like this are Steelblade Supremacy, Blood Rush Bellow, Forked Lightning, Crippling Crush, High Octane, and Mugishi Release. Just to name a few. As Flesh and Blood tournament play has developed and competitive decks have become more refined, we have come to learn that Drone of Brutality is undermining the core design tenet of every card counts. The inclusion of Drone of Brutality has led to play patterns where effectively this becomes every card is expendable. Because Drone of Brutality is an inevitable factor that will eventually win the game, the agonizing decision of whether or not to defend with an important high-impact card is supposed to be a beautiful feature of Flesh and Blood gameplay. Drone of Brutality has significantly diminished this and, in doing so, has undermined a core Flesh and Blood design tenet. For this reason, all versions of Drone of Brutality are banned in Blitz and Classic constructed formats, effective as of March 26, 2021. With respect to this ban, Drone of Brutality will be removed from future printings of Welcome to Wraith Unlimited. So what they're saying is back in March, this was warping the gameplay a tiny bit. But the problem for me, if I'm putting on the player's hat, not the collector's hat today, putting on the player's hat. The problem for me as a player is Drone of Brutality was a substitute good or a Giffen good at the time. It was a staple. It was a low-cost option if you didn't want to run E-Strikes or if you didn't want to run Command and Conquer. Now that Drone of Brutality has left the building, E-Strike and Command and Conquer are now warping the meta. You absolutely have to have them in your decks in order to win. And there's no low-cost option, so what that does is it raises the floor price of a deck that every competitive deck needs to at least $350 at the bare bones minimum. Definitely like 500 plus if you're trying to actually compete. So, with that high floor for the competitive scene, it creates a situation where it prices out a lot of players. And it could be that maybe Flesh and Blood isn't ready for that, especially due to COVID restrictions, tournament scenes. Like, they're filling up tournaments, so that's not an issue. And until it becomes an issue, they kind of don't have to worry about the players. And that's the weird part about all of this, is the competitive scene is just overpriced at the moment. You can't get into a competitive deck without spending $500 plus. I would highly recommend that Legend Story Studios unbans Drone of Brutality in the very near future. COVID restrictions are starting to be lifted. More and more countries are starting to open up as vaccines are being distributed. There's really every reason to unban Drone of Brutality at this moment in time. Maybe back in March it was smart, but at this point, if they did it to act as a rationing device for the competitive scene and they wanted more expensive decks and to be featured so they can kind of promote the collectible investable side as well, we're well past that. We are. Um, Collectors know that if they want to do well in Flesh and Blood, that they need to focus on the Veblen goods. They need to focus on cold foils. So that's already been instilled into the collector mentality. Is like, oh my god, I pulled a cold foil. It could be a $15 cold foil, but I'm happy. Even though I spent $100 in a box and got $40 worth of crap, I got a cold foil, and I'm just happy I got a cold foil because there's cold foil dud boxes out there. Um, and then there's very, very smart individuals that recognize this, and they recognize this situation. And I'm gonna go ahead and call him out. Chris Sires from Unseals, a very, very smart dude. So what he did to kind of fix that gap, right, is he offered a Corsham subsidy if you go onto Flesh and Blood Unseals, and if you open up a box of Tales of Aria and you are able to pull a box with no cold foil, you're going to get that Corsham bounty. You're going to get a cold foil Fable Corsham if you hit that bounty on Unseals. Um, I am not partnered with Unseals in any way, but that subsidy program that he built, uh, Chris Sires, is a brilliant, brilliant marketing move. And even if he's not partnered with Legend Story Studios, I would say that Chris Sires is probably carrying um, the flag for LSS in the U.S. market currently. And that's a big thing to say. It really is. I just got my butt handed to me in this league, man. I won one box out of 7 rounds, and it was just like, oh my god, I got destroyed. But just the and that happens. Like there's a risk when you open up boxes of any TCG. But here's the thing: is I'm still happy that I was able to participate. I had a ton of fun. There was a ton of entertainment. There was a lot of value that was generated outside of the actual cards themselves. So those are positive externalities that definitely help um, the brand of Flesh and Blood. It helps grow the game. It helps grow communities. And I just want to just applaud Chris Sires for doing that. He's a great guy. Definitely go to Unseals and check out his group if you have not done so already. I'm sure most of you have. Um, Going into the future, we're gonna obviously see some power creep as things go along. We're noticing a pattern of 2 core sets and then a supplemental set. And that has been the case so far. So we're obviously thinking that the next set is going to be a supplemental set, and there will be a new Fable gem that has already been revealed by Rudy in his promo kits. If you open up Rudy's promo kits for the Rudy $1,000 promo, you get like 3 fabled cards, but if you open it up even further and you dig deep and you look for that secret compartment, you'll find that additional fable reveal. Um, just note that I did not buy the Rudy card. It was a weird event. I'm studying it as a economist, and it's a very interesting thing. It's definitely up there as a classified as a Veblen good. But the second that people start selling those off, it's going to create a downward pressure, as do all Veblen's goods. So you could see these definitely dipping as more and more hit the market, but as that supply dries up, natural supply and demand will occur, and of course they will go back up as they reach the end users. Um, I think I've kind of gotten off topic of this video a little bit, but I want to say that Flesh and Blood needs to start looking at creating gameplay that is affordable, that can compete with the more expensive decks, and they need to find budget options. As I said in my last video, Magic the Gathering has that in the form of red, the color red. All the red cards are very affordable, they're printed, and they're very competitive. They're very simple to play as an entry level color. And even if you're not playing it as an entry level kind of color, it's still very powerful. Like, even top competitive decks play red sometimes just because of how the meta is warped. And you definitely want to, like, if there's a mid-range deck, you definitely want to play like red because you can obviously try to beat them out in a couple turns. But if they get to that fourth or fifth turn, it's usually game over for you if you're red, because you usually run out of steam by then. Um, I don't know how to fix it in Flesh and Blood, but I feel like a strong step is to unban Drone of Brutality so that there is an affordable E-Strike option, an affordable Command and Conquer option, and in other words, just a substitute that has benefit in a highly printed slot. Um, and we're seeing that in new sets that we're not finding much in the, hey, I need this common, hey, I need this rare, and we're not seeing like many staples come out of the common or rare slots, and that's a shame. It's a real shame. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Remember to have fun. You all have a wonderful day. Peace.